I'm gonna try something real quick. I don't know if he's gonna be available or not, but I'm gonna call my Edward Jones broker and see if he's available and ask him a question. Oh, it's 1:45. He might be out. Might be at lunch.
Hello, you.
Okay, he's at lunch. So, anyways, maybe we'll Google this. Maybe somebody who's watching this video would know. Now, my earnings per share is down right now, and that's mostly because I was mostly focusing on high-yielding dividend stocks. But I wasn't really paying attention to the earnings per share.
Head toward Kentucky 153 South, then turn left onto Kentucky 153 North.
As much as I should have been. So now I'm kind of focusing more on that because I was focusing on it, and then my brother, after we got our inheritance, I paid off some of my debt, and I put, a couple grand into my dividends, but not as much as my brother did. My brother dumped pretty much most of his inheritance, which we didn't get much, but we got something. Well, I'm sorry, we didn't get anything. All we did was we got this mobile home. Long story short, we got this mobile home that my dad had paid in full that he bought with his inheritance. And funny thing is, he only paid $25,000 for it, but it went up in value. Most of the time, mobile homes don't go up in value; they go down in value. But my dad was like OCD, pristine. This house still looked brand new after he passed away. It needed a tiny bit of repair, maintenance, and that was it. It cost us maybe $500. We ended up selling the mobile home for $52,000. It was a pain in the ass trying to get that $52,000, but we got $52,000 out of it. And technically we only got 50 because some of it was that rent, the lot rent that they paid us back for. So technically we only got 50K out of it. But we doubled its value. We got 50K out of it when my dad only paid 25. So anyway, so we got 25 apiece. My dad canceled his life insurance because he wanted this new Bronco when his Ranger was in perfect shape. My dad took care of everything, like OCD. So he canceled his life insurance so he can make payments on this brand new Bronco, which is his money, it's his life. Hey, whatever. But, and that's why I want to see, my family never did like a family trust, or we didn't inherit crap. My mom, she ain't got no money. My dad, we thought he was smarter and more successful than he really was, but my dad had nothing when it came down to it. He was good at pretending that he was good with money. Let's put it that way. So my brother and I've been talking about this for a while. Now my brother's on board, and we're talking about trying to set up a family trust, and we're trying to start generational wealth. And we're having trouble figuring out how to do it. But from what I understand, if you can figure out how the Rockefellers did it, that's probably the best way to do it. But we're still doing our homework. We're in the homework stage. And it's complicated because, you want to set it up right because you really only got one shot at this. So there's two types of trusts. There's one that can be edited. So you can go in, you got to pay money to go in and edit it, but it can be edited. You can make alterations. And then there's one that cannot be altered, and that costs a lot more up front. And if it does need to be altered, it costs a lot more money to alter it. So, it's like, which one do you pick and how do you set it up? Do you want it to be altered? Do you want it to have amendments? Do you not want it to have amendments? Do you want it to be set in stone? Whole 9 yards. It's very complicated. So we're working on figuring that out. There's tons of people out there trying to give you information, but nowadays, not when we was growing up, but nowadays there's a bunch of people talking about it. But which one's right? Which is the right way to go? And maybe people were talking about it before, but we weren't in the right fields and we weren't in the right algorithms to be hearing people talk about it. Our family didn't know anything about this crap. And nobody taught us. We had to figure it out for ourselves. And I kind of stumbled on this stuff sort of by accident. But if I wasn't looking in the right direction, I wouldn't have accidentally found it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like somebody told me one time, there's no such thing as luck, really. If you show up every day, you're on time every day, you're where you need to be at the right time. It's called serendipity, really. If you're at the right place at the right time every single day, those are the people that catch the lucky breaks. The people that don't show up don't catch the lucky breaks because they're not putting in the effort to be at the right place at the right time when the lucky break comes along. So the lucky break comes along for the person that's in that place, ready and willing and able to catch that lucky break. But you got to work every single day to be on top of your game, to be at the right place at the right time, to catch that opportunity when it's flying by. Because it could fly over your head and you don't even know it. And that happens to a lot of us. So I went off on a rabbit trail. But anyways, so I was diversifying my portfolio, if you will. And then my brother dumped a lot of his money that he inherited into BITO. And was making like $700 a month in dividends. And I was like, fuck, I should be putting more money over there myself. So then I changed direction and I started focusing on higher yielding dividend stocks. Before I was doing kind of both, and I still kind of was. Not really, no. Once I saw my brother was making more money than me, I started going and just investing in dividend stocks that pay a high yield. But I started ignoring the earnings per share because I'm trying to get my dividends up so that I can retire early. Because I didn't know about this when I was in my 20s. Yeah, people talked about stocks. People talked about IRAs. But people didn't really educate me on this stuff. And I didn't even know about dividends. Nobody said anything about dividend stocks. Nobody educated me. School doesn't educate people on financial education. They teach people how to be good slaves to the system, good employees. They don't teach you how to be successful entrepreneurs, not maybe until college. So they program you to be a robot in school, and then in college they take you to the next level. But then you have two directions. You can go the brainwashing direction with all the social justice bullcrap, or you can go the financial and the business educational direction. And so even in college you can get brainwashed and fucked up. And they don't really teach you everything in college either. They teach you what they want you to know. So it's like Kind of like Robert Kiyosaki had what he calls his rich dad and his poor dad. His poor dad was the school educated guy, and his rich dad, which was actually his best friend's dad, was the successful businessman entrepreneur. And so he followed in the footsteps of his friend's dad. So he didn't even have financial education. His dad didn't even know any of this stuff either. His dad was brainwashed and indoctrinated, and he was basically passing on that indoctrination to his son. And Robert Kiyosaki just happened to be best friends with somebody who had a dad who was a successful businessman, and Robert Kiyosaki just happened to pay more attention to that guy rather than his own dad, and he became a success. So, some of this is luck, being, at the right place at the right time, and also some of it is looking for that right place and that right time, looking to be at that right place and that right time. And a lot of these kids, a lot of us, we didn't know this growing up. They don't know, they don't know anything. And I didn't start figuring this out until I was in my late 40s. And, basically COVID. After COVID, so, call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever. But, I started waking up to all this New World Order stuff, blah, 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 around 9/11. I was already kind of awake. My grandfather I think both my grandfathers were awake. Although my grandfather on my dad's side was more of a crook. And my grandfather on my mom's side was a successful businessman. Not like a white collar successful businessman, but more like a blue collar successful businessman. And so my mom's dad would talk about things all the time, and I didn't pay enough attention, but I paid attention. I just didn't pay enough attention. And he always talked about how the government was corrupt and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then my other grandfather, my dad's dad, he got in trouble for tax evasion and all this other stuff. And then he ended up at the City Union Mission in Kansas City, kind of like for like some sort, working as a not-for-profit or whatever, kind of like as a tax shield to keep himself from going to prison for tax evasion or something like that. I don't remember all the details, but it's like, both were smart, but they both went different ways of going about it, and it seems like they both knew the government was corrupt, but they took two different paths. And I don't know, I just always grew up knowing that my dad's dad was crooked. But maybe he wasn't quite as crooked as I thought he was, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, if you don't pay your taxes, you're not a good citizen. Well, really? It's like they tax the middle class to death. If you don't have a business and you're not an investor, you pay the most taxes. So, and I just listened to my Indian Guru guy this morning about how Donald Trump's changing tax codes, trying to tax imports. And yeah, the products are going to go up in price. And the stocks are going to go up. But it's like, well, you don't get taxed if you don't spend money. So it's like, okay, I get all this money that I'm going to save on my income taxes, right? But yeah, they're going to tax you when you spend the money versus when you earn the money. So if you spend less money, you get to keep more money. You invest the money instead. So you don't pay Uncle Sam. You just take that money, you invest it in the stock market, and then you get your dividends. you get your dividends at tax free up to a certain point, and then you pay less taxes than you would on income tax if you had to pay income tax. Say we don't pay income tax at all. So, all right. So let's say they lower the income tax to just above what the investment tax is. So then you take the money that you would have paid in taxes, you invest it into these dividend stocks, then you get more money, and then you pay less taxes on that money. Then you have double the money that you have now because you invested it. Then you can afford to pay the tax on all the crap rather than paying the tax on the crap up front when you're scraping by, if that makes sense. So anyways, I like the idea. It's kind of more like a flat tax where you just pay sales tax and you don't really pay income tax. And then that way, you know, the rich get taxed the same as the people who are living as if they were rich. So if you choose to be poor by spending all your money on all this bullshit that you don't need, well then it's your own damn fault. But if you save money and invest the money, which, you know, they don't teach us this, then you get more money, and then you can afford to spend the money on the other junk that you probably don't really need. And the tax doesn't hurt you because you got all this money. So yeah, I mean, it's that way now, but if they got rid of income tax and taxed everybody on what they spent, then it would give people a better opportunity to actually invest their money so they'll have more money to spend on all the garbage. I buy things I don't need all the time too. So I'm not like talking down to anybody. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. So anyhow, so my brother was making like $700, $800 a month in dividends off of BITO before the dividend cut. And so I was like, well, shoot, I need to be putting more money into these higher yielding dividend stocks. So I started investing more into BITO and EETH. And then my brother accidentally discovered BETH because I was telling him about EETH and he thought I said BETH. And then there's another one. I think it's BTF. That's got a high yield. Oh, it went up to 198%. So that's kind of high risk. See, they don't really tell you on these if it's got a good earnings per share or not. So anyways, problem is though, my earnings, now I need clarification on this. I'm not 100%. I'm still learning. So I'm just kind of passing on what I've learned to everybody else. But if you look down here, my IRR is almost 5%, but my current holdings IRR is negative almost 23%. And so I'm thinking, I don't know 100% how this is what I was going to call my broker and say, hey, if I focus more on the earnings per share to make sure I buy stuff that the earnings per share is up and not down, would it increase my positive IRR? Because I really don't understand the IRR a whole lot, but I kind of understand it, but I don't kind of understand it, if that makes sense. So that's one of the few things I don't, well, actually, there's a lot of things I still don't understand. So there's a few things I understand, and there's still a handful of things that I don't understand, and the IRR is one of them. So I've been focusing on dividend stocks that pay a higher yield than the interest rate on my debt, which is my credit cards. But I think that might not have been my best approach, or maybe invest in dividend stocks that pay a higher yield than the interest rate on my debt that has either a good IRR or has a a good earnings per share. So if we go back over here, let's look up BITO. BITO. BITO is down right now. It's about to balance out. You know, if you look at the last 5 years, it's down. But in maybe another 6 months to a year, it could stabilize, right? According to whatever, you know, according to that. Now, let's see. This doesn't tell you any IRRs. Portfolio. Internal. Oh, here it is. Internal revenue, or IRR, down 40%. So, maybe the other thing, since this doesn't tell you what the earnings per share is, I could be looking at the IRR. And if the IRR is down, maybe I shouldn't put any more money into it. Let it kind of pay me back. Wait for the IRR to come up. I got to do some more research on the IRR. But let's look up TWO, because that's where we started out with this video. Because I got some money in my account now from my dividends, and so I'm reinvesting some of it. So TWO, the earnings per share, is down. So I'm not going to buy any TWO today. Let's see over here if it shows me an IRR. Now see, the IRR is up. So maybe I need to talk to my broker and say, hey, what if the earnings per share is down, but the IRR is up? Would it still be considered potentially a good investment? I don't know. See, I'm still learning. But if I look at the 5-year growth, the 5-year growth is up by a little over 0.5%. So the 5-year growth is up, not by much. The earnings per share is down by $2. It pays 13% dividend. My total profit, even though my stock is down a little bit, my total profit is almost $1, which is 2.63%. And the IRR is up 4%. So is that good? Is it bad? I don't know. So right now, it's an unknown. So I'm going to not buy more TWO stock today. The original reason I was going to make this video, and I got to go to the bathroom and I got to eat, so I'm going to try to cut this short. But the original reason I was going to make this video was I had just previously made a video for my trucking YouTube channel. And I was talking about how this job doesn't pay me enough to go home, because I can't afford to go home because I got all these bills I still got to pay. If I go home, so when I first started out with this job, I was working somewhat local out of Kansas City. I was running just the Midwest, and I was home every weekend. Of course, I was supposed to be home for 2 days every weekend, but they lied about that. 2 days turned into 1 day real quick. So I held out for a year, and then I left that division and went over the road. And I knew I was going to make a little less money, and I knew I was going to stay out a little bit longer, but I thought maybe my dividends would make up for the money I was losing. And I really didn't make as much at the other division as they claimed I would. With these trucking companies, you never make as much as what they tell you you're going to make. I would say knock 25% off of what they say you're going to make, and that's about what you're probably going to make. So if they say you're going to make $2,000, you're really only going to make $1,500, give or take. So, but a lot of these trucking companies lie. They're just trying to get, bodies in the door. And they know once you're in the door, you're stuck there for at least 6 months to a year. Otherwise, your resume is going to look like crap. So anyways, so I came over here. knowing I was going to make a little less money, but I needed to stay here because I was trying to get a loan to the bank for this real estate deal we were doing. Turns out I didn't really need it, but I still might need it. Don't know. We'll see. And if I do change companies, I have to change companies to a company that pays mileage and not commission, because the bank looks at a few things. They look at your job history, but also they look at your money history. So if I go from a salary base to an hourly base, they want you to have that hourly base income for a certain amount of time before they'll even look at you. Or if you go from hourly to salary, same thing. If you go from hourly to commission, or mileage to commission in my case, or even hourly, because there's some local jobs that pay hourly. So I change to hourly, or if I change to commission, because right now I'm on mileage, they're going to want me to be on my job on that pay scale for a certain amount of time before they'll give me a loan. And I still got like 2 potential real estate deals that I'm working on back home. So it's like I have to kind of stay here. I'm kind of stuck. Or if I do switch, I have to switch to a company that pays the same type of pay. And I have to go, obviously I'm looking for a job that pays better, but there's a lot of different variables. So like, for example, this company has 70 mile an hour trucks. I wish it was 75. This company has 70 mile an hour trucks. Well, there's this other company I was looking at going to that has 65 mile an hour trucks. Now, that other company pays a little bit better, but for every mile per hour, or is it 5 miles per hour? For every 5 miles per hour the truck goes or doesn't go, you gain or lose $25 a week, if I got my math right. And then for every penny per mile you make or lose, you stand to make or lose an additional $25 a week. So you got to factor in the speed of the truck. You got to factor in whether they're paying you hub miles or computer miles. Although even though that other company has slower trucks and they pay better, they also pay by the hub and not by the computer mile. So you actually get paid more. So that company's probably better. But anyways, but they have 2 different divisions that I'm looking at. One's commission based and the other one is mileage based. And so I'd have to go work on the mileage based one, even if the commission based one is better, because of the real estate aspect that I'm working on. Because I got another property I'm going to be potentially trying to buy after I get done with this real estate deal that I'm working on now. And then if I sell my other property, my 15 acres, I want to subdivide it and sell it, but I would have to refinance it. In fact, I've got an adjustable rate mortgage on it right now. So next year I have to refinance it anyways, potentially. So what I need to do is I need to subdivide it, and then I need to refinance whichever portions of the property that is worth what I still have left to pay on the loan, so that I can sell off the other portion or portions. So I'm working on those 2 real estate deals. The other real estate deal will actually improve my other property that I currently have. The property next to it is kind of like, we don't know what's going on with it, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with it, and if I can what's the word? Acquire it. So I'm working on those 2 deals after this deal is done. And then I'm still working on my family trust, trying to get that, organized and set up and figure out how to do it right and all that stuff. So, but I went off on a rabbit trail again. So basically what I was trying to say was, it's like with this company, I had to stay out for 3 weeks because I could go home every 2 weeks, where before I was going home every weekend. In this division, I can go home every 2 weeks, or 10 to 14 days. But I can't afford to do that because I make so little money here in comparison to what I used to make and what I could make somewhere else. And so what I was saying in the last video for my trucking video is I would have to get my dividends up. I would have to get my dividends up to 3 months' income before I can afford to go home every 2 weeks. Where right now, I go home every 3 weeks, right? So it's like if I go home every 2 weeks, or every other weekend, I should say, which is about 10 days, then, which I don't mind staying out for 14 days rather than 10 days, but my girlfriend has the weekends off, so she wants me home on the weekends. And I have my goat or my animal rotation every 3 weeks, so I have to rotate them every third weekend. So that's one of the reasons why I go home every 3 weekends. And then once I get more animal rotation yards set up, then I can come home every 2 weeks and rotate them every 2 weeks instead of every 3 weeks. But however, but if I went home every 10 days, I'd have one good paycheck and one crappy paycheck. And I really just can't afford that at this time. Where if I stay out for every third weekend, then I would have 2 good paychecks and 1 crappy paycheck. So, I have less home time, but I have more money. It's like a double-edged sword. But once I get my dividends up, it's like I got my dividends up to $3,500 a year. And, I make approximately $60K. That thing's always getting in the way. All right. $60,000 divided by 52. So I make about $1,100 or $1,200 a week on average. Okay. 60,000 divided by 12. So it's about $5,000 a month. Well, I'm at 3,500 minus 3,500. So I need to get it up another 1,500 to replace 1 month of my income. Then I got to do that 2 more times before I can afford to go home. But at the same time, my IRR is down and it kind of scares me. Where am I? I don't want my IRR to be down so low. I mean, it says it's almost 5% here, but it says it's negative almost 23% here, and that's scary. Because then you look up here, my stocks are down by almost 3K. Then you got my dividends received, almost $2,000. And then my profits and losses, that's my day trading, that's up about $2,000. So, so I've actually done better on my day trading than I have on my dividends so far. But I really don't day trade as a habit or whatever you want to call it. I'm more of a dividend investor. So eventually the dividends are going to outweigh the day trading. Not to mention the taxes are way less on the dividends than it is on the day trading. So overall, at this point, my total profit is $864, almost 65. So my stocks are down, but overall I'm still making money, so I'm happy about that. But my IRR looks a little sketchy. So basically, what I got to figure out is, like TWO, if the earnings per share is down, but the IRR is up. Is it still a good investment? You know, overall, last 5 years, stock is up. You know, it went up way high, then it went down way low, then it went back up, and now it's been gradually falling. Is it going to stabilize? We don't know. But that's where you got to do some extra homework. You know, I'm only down $14, but then, like I said, I made $13 in dividends. No, that's 13%. Where's my dividends? This doesn't make sense. Oh, because I sold some of it. Okay, so my profits and losses, because I did do some day trading with this stock. I sold some at $2. The stock is currently down $2, or I sold some at $2.15 profit. The stock is currently down $2.20, and I made 87 cents on dividends. So I'm up 82 cents overall. So, so will it stabilize? We don't know. But now what I'm doing is I'm not necessarily focusing on the high yielding dividend stocks, even though maybe I should just focus on the high yielding dividend stocks that have a good IRR and a good earnings per share. Now, if it doesn't show an earnings per share, then I can just look at the IRR. So that's what I suggest. You know, it's like if you're investing and you don't know where to invest, basically what I try to do, there's different strategies for everybody, but what I try to do is I try to buy a little bit of everything, starting with the high yielding stocks and then work my way down. I also started out with carbon credit stocks because I'm a conspiracy theorist. And but I'm like, hey, if I'm going to buy a carbon credit stock, I should buy one that's going to pay me in dividends, not the other crappy carbon credit stocks, right? So anyway, so I started buying carbon credit stocks that pay a dividend. Well, actually, I bought both, but I'm focusing on the dividend ones. And then some other ones that the guru people talk about all the time, like, you know, the S&P 500, SPY, QQQ, the good ones. The long-term stable stocks that pay only a couple percents. You know, we should have some of those too. If you're definitely worried about, you know, volatility, definitely focus on the lower yielding stocks that have more stability. But otherwise, just buy a little bit of everything. That's what I do. And then do your own homework on each one. I used to start out with like $20, but now I'm starting out with $1. So I buy $1 of everything, unless it won't let me buy just $1. It makes me buy a share. I'll start out with 1 share or $1 of everything. And then, if and when it pays me a dividend, I go in and I look at earnings per share. I look at the 5-year growth. I look at the yield. And now I'm looking at the IRR as well. And then I determine whether or not I'm going to put more money into it or not. If the earnings per share is down and or the IRR is down, then I might not put any more money into it. I might wait for the EPS and the IRR to go back up. If the 5-year growth is down, then I might not put as much money into it. I might put a little bit into it, but not as much. And if the 5-year growth is up, I might put more money into it. So that's kind of my strategy. My girlfriend's dad, I'm about to be picking his brain, or trying to pick his brain, because I want to, my girlfriend's more paranoid. So I want to try to set her up on a more stable path like her dad has. He doesn't talk, they don't really have a good communication in their relationship. So maybe I could be the go-between. because him and I connect better than him and her connect intellectually and probably emotionally. So psychologically. So I'm going to be picking his brain because he's pretty much retired. He lives on his dividend stocks, and he's like self-insured, self-everything. He basically is wealthy. My girlfriend thinks he's a millionaire. He might not be a millionaire. He doesn't tell anybody how much money he has, which is smart. But he has enough. He's making enough money off of his dividends to where he lives comfortably, or he can live comfortably. He still lives like a pauper, even though he's rich. And that's one of the things they tell you: don't fall into that trap. Don't live like a pauper your whole life. You're trying to be rich so you can live like no one else. And like Dave Ramsey says, live like no one else today. Live like a pauper today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. Live large tomorrow off of, your assets that you accumulate. So you suffer in the short run so you can not suffer in the long run. Most people, we don't suffer in the short run, and then we end up suffering in the long run. And so we're all doing it backwards, and that's how they teach us in school. So we got to relearn ourselves. Anyways, I really got to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to end this. But yeah, just focus on dividend stocks that have a good 5-year growth, good earning per share, and pay a good dividend yield. And what is a good dividend yield? Well, that's in the eye of the beholder. And also there's another thing. This is the one my girlfriend's dad focuses on, is dividend growth. So do they have a good dividend growth? Here it is, dividend growth over the last 5 years. So that's another thing to look at as well. Do they have a good dividend growth? So, and I don't know what this dividend rating means. We'll have to figure that out. Anyways, I gotta go. All right, bye.